With F1's season-opening Australian Grand Prix right around the corner, there's nowhere to hide for any driver, team, or organisation in trouble. 3 days of pre-season testing doesn't tell us everything about the 2025 pecking order. We'll only know properly when the lights go out in Melbourne, but you can tell who is already feeling the heat. And while the likes of McLaren can be quietly confident, there are a few others who already look to be in trouble before the first race of the season. Of 2024's front-running quartet, it's Red Bull that appears to be in the most trouble. There doesn't appear to be a fundamental design flaw, but getting the RB21 into the right working window is still proving to be a puzzle, with both Max Verstappen and Liam Lawson visibly struggling with the car. That's particularly troublesome for Lawson, who is trying to do what no teammate of Verstappen has done for the last 6 years, consistently get close to Verstappen's level. Don't forget, Lawson has never even started an F1 season before. It's not going to be an easy senior team debut for Lawson, but there were at least some tentative signs in Bahrain that he might be up to the job. There's promise of a decent pipeline of upgrades for the RB21 too, but they'll only come once the team properly understands where it's lacking. By its own admission, it has not made the progress over the winter it would have liked to. Despite first appearances of very few differences, Red Bull insists the 2024 to 2025 car changes are actually numerous. And those changes mean Red Bull has started a lengthy learning process rather than simply picking up where it left things last year. The changes have delivered some positive signs, as there's now a flatter setup window with less of the troublesome peakiness of its predecessor, so there are hints of untapped potential there. Also, don't forget there's a mid-season flexi wing clamp down coming for the Spanish Grand Prix, which Red Bull hopes will bring things further back in its favour. But given its chief 2024 rival McLaren looks so strong, that could mean some early damage is dealt to both Verstappen's title defence and the team's hopes of regaining the Constructors' title it lost last year. It might be a case of damage limitation in the early races until Red Bull solves the mystery of its RB21. 2026 is where Aston Martin is targeting a great leap forward with its emerging F1 super team, but it would have hoped to have made more progress than it appears to have made heading into 2025. After testing, Fernando Alonso said things look similar to Abu Dhabi last year, which isn't ideal because even though the team was 5th in the Constructors' Championship, well clear of the rest of the midfield, in that phase of the season it had slipped to regularly having the 7th, 8th or sometimes even 9th quickest car. That's not where a team with the resources or ambitions of Aston Martin should be, even if it won't get the full benefit of its new wind tunnel and technology campus until 2026. One of the big objectives of the AMR25 was making the car more benign, i.e. more predictable for drivers Alonso and Lance Stroll. The initial feedback was good, though by the end of the test, the race's trackside team were witnessing more and more rear instability on entry and corrective action from the drivers. Alonso shrugged this off as the Bahrain track conditions simply moving the car out of the sweet spot, and if he's right, Aston has at least made progress in a key area. It's key not least because the unpredictability of last year's car was a major factor in Stroll going pointless for the final 11 races. The problem is, his illness on Friday in Bahrain meant Stroll completed fewer laps than any other driver during the test. A lack of testing didn't stop Stroll from performing well in early 2023 when an injury from a cycling accident ruled him out of testing, but back then Aston had a top 4 car, which the 2025 car doesn't look anywhere near being. Our team in Bahrain didn't witness the quiet confidence of early 2023 at Aston. Instead, it simply looks to be a continuation of its late 2024 frustration for now. Aston can at least be buoyed by Adrian Newey's arrival earlier this month, but ideally all of his focus should be on 2026, not salvaging Aston's 2025. It won't have the benefit of Enrique Cardile's knowledge either, after Ferrari's court case victory means Cardile definitely can't get to work any earlier than when his gardening leave expires in July. There's still plenty of excitement about Aston's huge 2026 potential, but for now it faces a fight to have a respectable 2025. If you want to prove you know more about Formula 1 than your friends and family, why not challenge them on our fantasy F1 app of choice, Grid Rival. Grid Rival has unique custom controls for league admins to make managing a league simple. It also has built-in chat, so say hello to weekly banter and goodbye to WhatsApp and email threads to stay in touch with your league. There's also real-time scoring, so you can keep track of your team through every Grand Prix weekend. And every league gets a detailed race report each week, so you can find out how you've stacked up against other players. And since Grid Rival is a native mobile app, push notifications will ensure you never miss filling out your lineup. You can even challenge our team at the race too by joining our league with this link. Available to download now on both iOS and Android, Grid Rival is the only fantasy app you need for the 2025 F1 season. Alpine is nowhere near the omni-shambles of this time last year, when it had an overweight and slow car that was so poor it led to both its technical director and head of aerodynamics resigning before the season opener. In fact, Alpine looks to be in very good shape, having built on the progress of its impressive recovery last year. There's little to choose between Alpine and Williams as the standout midfield team after testing, so it's far from in trouble, but one of its drivers certainly is. Jack Doohan's had the spotlight on him ever since Alpine brought in Franco Colapinto as a reserve driver, with even Williams saying this was Colapinto's best chance of securing a race seat. Doohan had a perfectly respectable test. Much like his surprise Abu Dhabi debut last year, it was solid if unspectacular. He did so against the backdrop of consistent questioning about his future and whether he feels under threat, given the rumours that he only has a few races to prove he deserves to keep his seat for the full season. Team boss Oliver Oakes is proud of how punchy Doohan has been in response to the questions and said he feels for his driver because the media wants the clickbait when Doohan deserves some space to perform. The problem is, it's Alpine's own actions and rhetoric that have created that noise. And even Oakes acknowledges that F1 is a meritocracy, and that starting the season with Pierre Gasly and Doohan doesn't mean Alpine will finish the season with that lineup. No other driver on the grid is in as much immediate trouble as Doohan is, with his F1 career hanging in the balance before it's even properly begun. Sauber had a modest revival in the closing stages of 2024, but pre-season testing has extinguished any optimism. Lap times don't mean a huge amount in testing, but when you have the slowest overall lap time of the 10 cars, are at the back on long run pace, and your car looks like the biggest handful on track, you are in trouble. And our F1 team couldn't find any team in the paddock that didn't regard Sauber as being at the back. Technical director James Key said it was a productive test, describing the car as having decent, consistent performance, adding that we will look to keep moving forward. But he was never going to be negative, and consistent is about the most generous thing you can say about the car. While it wasn't at Alpine 2024 pre-season levels, the car never looked properly planted. And while Nico Hülkenberg used his vast experience to make the most of it, rookie Gabriel Bortoleto found the car a handful. That's not a criticism of him, as he needs to explore the limits, but this is hardly a dream car for a rookie. Judging by our team watching from trackside, the Sauber looked to be running too stiff, suggesting the car cannot be run more compliantly mechanically, given doing so would surely make it easier to drive. One of our team on the ground at the race, Ed Straw, pressed Hülkenberg on the trickiness of the car at the end of the test. The veteran used all of his experience to dodge the questions, but it's fair to say he hardly shot down the notion that Sauber was struggling. It was a good-natured exchange, one of several, but suffice to say, Sauber has some significant work to do. And Hülkenberg did concede that the baseline of the car was not amazing, and Sauber does have certain struggles. With the name change to Audi looming next year, Bahrain testing was a bad start to what is an important season for the team. After all, if Sauber repeats its 2024 performance and ends up last, that's indicative of just how much work needs to be done to get it to a respectable level, let alone achieve Audi's aim of fighting for wins and championships by 2030. F1 FIA relations are at a point where all sides are in trouble heading into the season because there are no winners in a relationship as strained as this one. It's no secret that there is a clear tension between the FIA president and various sides of F1, like the rulemaking bodies, the drivers, and senior figures in the paddock. Most recently, a demand from FIA President Mohammed Ben Sulayem for members of the World Motorsport Council to sign non-disclosure agreements led to a vote taking place without high-ranking FIA officials who refused to sign that NDA, including Deputy President for Sport Robert Reid and Motorsport UK Chairman David Richards. That prompted Richards to launch a scathing public attack on Ben Sulayem's presidency, saying there has been a distinct failure to live up to his election promises. That's highly significant, given Richards was a key supporter of Ben Sulayem when he was elected in 2021. We're yet to hear his direct response, but so far, Ben Sulayem has been fighting what he perceives as fire with fire. The more leaks, the more he closes ranks. The more this is criticised, the more he doubles down. And we're about to find out how that will manifest in season, with trouble brewing on both sides. For example, the opening race in Australia will be the first time the FIA has control over F1 driver language on a race weekend. Will a driver land themselves in hot water for a spur-of-the-moment slip of the tongue? Will Ben Sulayem come under fire from another high-profile figure? Will F1 stoke any flames by broadcasting expletive-filled radio messages? For a long time, flashpoints between the president and different groups, like moles within his own organisation, the media, the drivers, F1 CEO Stefano Domenicali, and so on, have ultimately been quick flare-ups that have rarely caused problems, without causing massive damage to F1 itself. But when the composition of race control changes, or stewards are removed, or key figures lose faith in the process, there can very quickly be a tangible cost to F1 and how a race weekend plays out.